welcome back to another video. Today is an annual video that I do every year where I talk about Decades Week. For the last three or four years, I have participated in my own Decades Week. You know, in school when you had a week where people just dressed up in different decades? I do that for myself. So I've done it for the last few years, and every time Decades Week ends, I make a video talking about each look, how I created it, and how it went down. So, let's get into it.
Why bottle any trouble? Leave sorrow like a bubble. Just look at those smiling skies.
The first day was the 1990s. Most of the clothes for this look is modern, aside from the glasses. They are, I believe, the 90s, if not early 2000s. I've had them for quite a long time. So I wore the overalls with one of them unhooked, which is actually very popular in the 90s. You would wear it with a t-shirt or an oversized hood, like sweater. With that, I put a bandana over my hair, which was also a look. I don't know if a lot of people mix them together, but I did. And of course, I had the glasses, which look very similar to my mom's, which she had in the 90s, so that was cool. Day 2 was the 1980s. I actually have a few clothing pieces within this look that are from the 1980s. The sweater I got at an antique mall about a week before I did this, and it's very comfortable. The jacket I've had for a little longer, but it is also a 1980s jacket that I got at a different antique mall. I love antique malls. To top it off, I added some bracelets, jelly bracelets around my wrist, some earrings that my mom had from the 80s or 90s, but they are hers, which if you look at a lot of my 80s looks on my account, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, I have those earrings in a lot because they're like my favorite earrings, because they're my mom's. I wore some sunglasses that are not vintage at all, but they make the look cool, and of course I had a fluffy, flowery headband that reminded me of Madonna from the 1980s. When it comes to the 80s hair, I usually curl my hair using bobby pins, very thin strands. It is not perfect. I don't have very thick hair. My hair is very thin, so even if I curl it, it sometimes doesn't look very thick. Sometimes I get lucky and it looks thicker than it actually is, but my hair is very thin. So I tried the best with what I had. I do believe it turned out really well. 80s is one of my favorite decades, so of course I had a lot of fun with this one, and I was just jamming out. Day 3 was the 1970s. Most of this outfit is not vintage aside from the jacket. The pants and shirt I bought especially for this week on Amazon. It's just a very short, tight t-shirt. And of course you got the bell-bottom jeans, which made me look really cool. But I had to wear boots with them because they were too big and they covered my feet. So I had to wear boots so I could walk around and not trip and die. The jacket is my grandfather's. I don't know exactly what decade it is from. I believe it's from the 70s or 80s, but I don't know. It is vintage. I just don't know exactly where it's from. My grandmother gave it to me a few years ago, and I thought, why not add it to the look? With that, I added a page boy cap, I believe they're called. They were popular in the 70s as well as the 60s, and they came back in the 90s as well. And I had some, like, aviator sunglasses, which just added to the vibe. Day 4 was the 1960s. For this, I used a dress that I got at the same antique mall that I got the 80s sweater at. I don't know what decade it actually is from. The tag did not say, but it looked 60s, if not late 50s, and it made me feel really fancy. So I thought, why not wear that? My hair, I tried to do a beehive, but of course, as I say, I have very thin hair. I don't have a lot of hair. It's very short. So I tried to do a part beehive, part down, which I think turned out really well with the short hair I have. I could have curled the ends a little bit more. They were kind of flat, but it wasn't bad overall. I matched my makeup to the dress and tried to look fancy. I don't know if it was really, it wasn't like perfect to the 60s, as I don't know if the dress was 60s, but I felt very pretty, so I'm okay with it regardless. Day 5 was the 1950s. For this look, I decided to go for a 1950s cheerleader. I actually used this sweater in Decades Week 2 years ago, I believe. I didn't realize this until after I posted it that I had done that, but who cares? So I used a 1950s cheerleading sweater that I got a few years ago. It's actually a sweater from 1953. It says the 53 on the arm. I put a white button-up underneath it, so the collar stuck out under the sweater, and then I used one of my many 50s skirts, because I've bought like 4 or 5 of them. They are not original 50s skirts, but they're very flowy. It made me feel cool. I added that with my saddle shoes, which I actually got in my P.O. box. Thank you. And put the look together. The hair, I twisted around the sides and had it down. It could have been curlier. My hair was not that curly that day. It depends on the day. When you have curly hair, my hair's not tight curls, it's more of loose, but it's random. It never curls the same way, ever. So some days my hair's really curly and it looks really nice. Other days it's just flat. It depends on how I wash it, if it's rained. It's a whole thing. But I do believe it turned out really well. It was actually one of the looks that did the best on TikTok. And it was just fun to bounce around and have fun. Plus, I love skirts that twirl. When you can, like, twirl and it goes around you. It is the best feeling. And I will never deny that. For day 6, I did the 1940s with this look. I used a dress that I've also used for Decades Week in the past. Last year, I used it for the 1930s. This year, I used it for the 1940s. Now, this dress was one of the first vintage pieces I had ever bought, so it's very special to me. Personally, I am not a tan type of person. I don't wear a lot of tan or browns. I like blacks and reds, and I like blue. But tan, even though I'm wearing tan shorts right now, tan is not my color. I wear it sometimes, but it's not my choice. But I paired this dress and used it for the 40s because it is a shirt dress, and shirt dresses were popular 50s, 40s, and sometimes even in the 30s. It ranged, and it looks very 40s in style, so I went, why not? So I used that dress, got myself some gloves. Of course, I had to wear a hat. I curled my hair. It could have been a little longer. I could have styled it a little differently, but my hair's short, so it was a little difficult. I styled it with a hat. I don't believe it was from the 40s. It might be a 50s hat. I'm not sure, but it was a vintage hat that I paired this look with. I did a 40s style makeup, which is very similar to 50s and even 30s, depending on what you go for. The makeup looks between those decades are very similar. Of course, I could have paired this with stockings, which is what you normally wear, but I had white socks, which did the job. Of course, with this look, you might have a purse or a coat that goes with this, but this is what I went for. And I think it turned out really well, and 40s red lipstick was very popular, as it was in the 50s, and actually, Hitler hated lipstick, and so women would wear it as a defiance of him, which is actually really freaking cool, by the way. But I just really like how this look turned out. Day 7 was the 1930s. This dress is really beautiful. I don't know if I've ever worn it on my account, and if I have, it's been a while. I didn't even realize I still had it. It was in the back of my closet, and it's the most 30s style dress that I own, because the farther you go back, the less clothes I have. I have a lot of 50s clothes and stuff that could be considered 40s. But when you go farther back, it dramatically drops. For the 30s, I don't really have anything unless I use, 40s, 50s clothes and pretend they're 30s. When it comes to actual 30s clothes, none. I do not believe this dress is from the 30s. It's too nice, I would say. It doesn't seem old enough. But of course, I have a 30s wedding dress that I've worn on my account that is in great condition, so anything is possible. This dress made me look very tall, which was very nice. I curled my hair for this look as well, but I curled it so it was tighter, so it was shorter, because in the 30s, hair was shorter. I paired this with a hat, some nice white gloves, white socks, and a different pair of heels that matched the dress. Blue heels rather than brown. Neither of the heels I used for these both days are vintage. They are just styled to look that way, but I think it added to the look, and it also made me look very tall. So I appreciate this look a lot. Day 8 was the 1920s. When it comes to 1920 clothes, I have literally nothing. So for this look, I went for a stylized flapper with sequins and the frills and the whole shebang. Flappers in the 20s did not look like that. Of course, they're not saying they didn't have frills or they could have sparkles, but their dresses were a lot more tame than what the stereotypical flapper costumes look like. So this dress is not the most period accurate, but I did the best I could with what I had. I got this dress through my P.O. box, thanks again, and I paired it with a stole that I have gotten at a sale, because I love vintage sales, and it is real fur. I don't know what kind of fur it is, but it is actual fur that I wrapped around my shoulders. I had a headband that I tucked my hair into that matched with the dress. I did my makeup a little smoky, added some red maroony lipstick, and the heels do not really match the flapper look, but I didn't have any heels that matched the 20s, so it's what I went with. Of course, next year I'm going to try and get some more 20s, at least styled clothes. If it's not from the 20s, at least looks like the 20s, so I can do a more accurate look. But as I have done, I think all of the years I've done this, I always do a flapper, and it's always stylized flapper, like movie glamorized flapper. But I'm going to try next year to do a little more accurate when it comes to the 20s. We'll see, but I'm going to try. Day 9 and the final day was the 1910s. I went for a studious teacher looking look, I guess you could say. The glasses that I am wearing are vintage. I do not know what decade, but I got them at a sale. And I paired them with a glasses chain that I got in my P.O. box that is not vintage but looked cool. I pinned my hair up. It wasn't very accurate. I originally was going to go for a Gibson girl, but for that you need a hair rat to really add shape, and my hair is thin and short. So that was going to look dumb. If I mean, I could have tried. So I went for a more easier look. I just pinned it up, and I made it look as, you know, Edwardian as I could, but it wasn't period accurate. Back then they also had some makeup, but it wasn't like poppy. Like in the 20s they went full out. And even onward, you know, lipstick and eyeshadow and all that. Edwardian, there was a little bit of it, but it wasn't like overpowering, so I just decided to wear no makeup at all. The outfit I am wearing is a costume. It is one piece. I didn't know that when I bought it. I thought it would be a blouse and a skirt. No, it was one piece that I put on. It looked period accurate, but it was not. There was a Velcro piece at the top where you could pin a fake pin, you know, with a, what's it fucking called? With a, what is it? The side thing. My brain shut off. Caricature? No. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. I'll show a picture, one of these. But it broke the second I tried putting it on. I was like, wow. So I used one of my real pins that I have gotten. It's from the 40s or 50s. So that's pretty awesome. And the glasses are vintage. The dress is not. Edwardian is not something I have a lot of, especially because it is 1910s. A lot of the clothes is either super expensive or in terrible condition. So I don't really have a lot for that. I did sew an outfit a few years ago that I could have used, but I just didn't want to. I don't know. It's not as well made as I would like it to be. I hope to get into sewing again. I haven't sewed anything in like a year. I've just been busy with so much other stuff that I haven't thought of it, but I hope to get back into sewing and making some costumes. But I'm lazy and I'm also impatient, so when it comes to sewing, I want to make it now. I want it to be done now, and it's not done now. But, you know, I try my best. So this was, the 1920s and the 1910s were both costumes with a little bit of vintage in it. The other looks, I used almost all vintage clothes, except I think the 90s was mostly modern. But 80s I had vintage, 70s I had at least a little, 60s backward. I had at least partial vintage in every single look. Most of the clothes was vintage in every single look, except for the 20s and 10s, as those were both costumes. I try to make the looks different every single year. I have done this a few years in a row, and some of the dresses are a little bit the same, but I'm going to try next year to get new pieces, so that way when I do this again, I always do this the first week of May, so you know for next year. I try to get different outfits for every year, so it's different and it's not the same thing over and over and over again. They are a year apart, so a lot of people are going to be like, oh, I still like it, but I like to make it different, so it's not always the same, which makes a lot of sense. So I hope to collect a few more items for each decade. However, I do need room for my normal clothes, which I keep running out of room for because I keep buying vintage clothes, and it's a problem. But it's a problem that I enjoy. So it's okay. It's alright. I hope you guys enjoyed this Decades Week. If you would like to see the content itself, it is on my TikTok and Instagram, Superwolf1967, because I'm creative. So if you would like to check that out, I would really appreciate it. I worked really hard on every single look, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I like having a mission and a goal every day. That's why I really like doing Goretober as well, where I do a different Halloween-y, spooky makeup look / costume every single day of October. which I plan to do this year as well. That's a lot of fun, and Decades Week is just like that, where I have a mission every day, where I have to make a costume, I have to do my hair, I have to do my makeup, I have to create something, I have to find music. For every single decade, I tried to find music that fit that decade. I tried to only use music from that decade. So if I did the 50s, I tried to use 50s music, and I did a few acting audios as well, and I tried to choose movies from that decade, so that way it fit the vibe. I even added filters to make it look old, and I just had a lot of fun. I'm a vintage collector. I love wearing clothes and time traveling, and I hope you guys really enjoy it too. And I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this Decades Week. I will be back again next year with another Decades Week. Of course, I do vintage on my account, not just 1 week a year. I do it about every other week or every 2 weeks, depending on what I want to do. But I do vintage still. So if you like vintage, you like cosplaying, you like random stuff, because I can't choose one niche to stick to, my accounts are there for the enjoyment. Alright guys, I will see you Thursday with another True Crime Thursday, Monday with whatever I decide to post. Alright guys, I'll see you later. Whoosh.